Holding on to faith, you know that nothing can catch you by surprise. You've got this figured out. You're watching us now. But when it looks as if we can't win, you wrap us in your arms and step in. And everything we need you supply. You got this in control. Now we know that you made a way. When our backs were against the wall and it looked as if it was over, you made a way. And we're standing here only because you made a way. The way. Now we're here, looking back on where we've come from. Because of you and nothing we've got to deserve the love and mercy you show. 'Cause grace was strong enough to pick us up. You made a way. When our backs was against the wall and it looked as if it was over, you made a way. And we're standing here only because you made a way. When our backs were against the wall and it looked as if it was over, you made a way. And we're standing here only because you made a way. You move mountains, you cause walls to fall with your power. You perform miracles, there is nothing that's impossible. And we're standing here only because you move mountains, because walls to fall with your power. You perform miracles, there is nothing that's impossible. And we're standing here only because you move mountains, you cause walls to fall with your power, perform miracles, there is nothing that's impossible. And we're standing here only because you made. And we're standing here only because you made. And we're standing here only because you made a way. A way. Backs were against the wall and it looked as if it was over. You made a way. And we're standing here only because you made a way. You made a way. You made a way. You made a way. Don't know how, but you did it. A way. but you didn't make a way. Don't know how, but you didn't. 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 Don't. Yes. Thank you so much for joining me once again. This is Dr. Tope Ade. And that song was by Travis Greene, You Made a Way. And before I go on, I have a disclaimer. I have no right to this music, and I'm just using it for the benefit of what I've been inspired to do. When we listen to this music, a lot of times when I listen to this music, what comes to my mind is how many times God has gotten my back. Especially the times when I thought it was over. The times when I thought, there wasn't going to be any way. And that takes me back to the children of Israel. They left Egypt, left known for unknown, but they trusted in a Yahweh that they probably didn't know and heard from their ancestors. And also, being led by Moses, and they knew Moses' family because it was from the family of Levi. And so then Moses came and told them about the God that their fathers had been talking about, and who made a covenant with Abraham, and who had promised to take them to a land of promise. And so finally, after all the plagues and all of that, they left Egypt, and on their way to the promised land, they got to the Red Sea. And, they stood at the Red Sea, they were wondering, what next? What next? God, this is a Red Sea. How do we cross this Red Sea? And God gave a command. Told Moses, what do you have in your hand? And he said, a rod. And the Lord said, tell the children of Israel to go forward. Tell the children of Israel to go forward. And then he says, but lift up your rod and stretch out your hand over the sea and divide it. And the children of Israel shall go on dry ground through the midst of the sea. Now, there was a part of this song that said something there that says, when God is not surprised by whatever we're going through, God is not surprised. It's not a new thing to God. It doesn't come to God like, oh my goodness, did that just happen? No, it doesn't come to God like that. God is omniscient and is omnipotent. And he's all-knowing God. He already has a way out even before the incident occurs. That takes me back to several years ago when I was doing my master's in the seminary before I proceeded to my doctoral program. I used to fly down before I started driving. So I used to fly down to Tulsa from Dallas. Then I hadn't figured out that it was a 4-hour drive, about 230 miles from where I live in Dallas. So prior to figuring it out, I used to take Southwest Airline, which was the fastest and the closest and the most direct from here to Tulsa, and the cheapest at that time. And so this was a time my first year, it was apparently my first year in the seminary. The first year I didn't want any student loans because the Lord had promised me that he had already made provision. And suddenly the provision was there, but something happened that the enemy tried to mess up and thwart those plans, but God already had a way out. So my first 2 semesters, I paid cash from the money I'd saved. And so this semester, after paying my tuition, I now did not have, I'd paid my tuition, I'd bought my ticket, but now I didn't have a place to stay, because usually, because we were mature students, most of us that were doing the modular schedule, where, already had, some of us had families, some had ministries, most of us had our own ministries, and we were mature students, so we didn't stay on the campus, so we didn't have any accommodation to stay with the regular students on the campus. So we had different places where we had the lecture, and so we had to stay, either find our own accommodation or stay in a hotel. So I used to stay in a hotel that was across from the school. So I would be in school for like 7 days, and the 7 days I would have to stay in a hotel, and then also need a car to drive around, from my hotel to the campus and all that, back and forth. And so this day I bought my ticket, I'd paid my tuition for classes, but I didn't know how and where I was going to stay. And so I was deliberating, and I was worried, actually, and I prayed. I didn't know what was going to happen, because I was supposed to go to school on Sunday, and by Saturday I still didn't have a plan of accommodation. So I went somewhere. I went out that evening, that Saturday. I remember I was in a store trying to, pick one or two things, because usually before leaving for school, I had to cook the meal for a whole week for my children, and plan for the family, and cook the meals for the whole week that I would be away. So I usually prepped all of that all week long, and, put the final touch to it the day before going to school. So I was going to pick one or two things, and then my phone rang. Apparently there had been this couple that were members of my church, the church I pastored when I was in Houston, and they were now in Tulsa. The husband was posted to Tulsa, from his job. So they called me, and they just said, Pastor, well, we know you're coming to school this weekend, but we will be out of town. And would you mind, do you mind staying in our house while we're away? We'll be away for a whole week, and you have the house to yourself. And also we have our car available for you to use. I don't know if you can imagine how I felt. Right there in the store, I shed some tears. I wept, because I was fretting as to how God was going to make a way. And I was already thinking, okay, maybe I will sleep in the chapel, or just some crazy thoughts. And God made a way. And now, to even crown it all, when I got to school that week, everybody wanted to buy me lunch. Almost everybody wanted to buy me lunch. At a point in time, I was almost embarrassed that why is it that everyone in my class would say, hey, you know what? I got your lunch today. I got your lunch today. And we used to go on, a group lunch, which was part of the cohort, which was important for, it was kind of like a group lunch, which was part of the class anyway. So, and somebody would pick a place, or the professor would pick somewhere that we would go for lunch. And at that same week as well, somebody's already paid for me. And I looked at the faithfulness of God. And that's not just the only time. There's several testimonies. There's several times that God has gotten my back. And I know that you have such moments and such times as well. And so this song by Travis Greene, Made a Way, takes me back several times to God's faithfulness. At the nick of time, when God comes through, God is faithful. I know that. I have seen his faithfulness. I can sit here and tell you again and again how God has gotten my back. Especially when you are in ministry for the purpose of what God has called you to do, the love of God, full-time ministry, and taking care of a family, and you know that this is what God has called you to do. And it takes time to study, to prepare, to teach, to do all that, to equip. And you want to do everything right. Sometimes it's not that easy. But you know what? At those times, God always comes true. And he's never failed. He's true as he is. His name is, he's the way maker. He says he's the way, the truth, and the life. And that is who my Jesus is. So I want to repeat that song again and just listen to that song by Travis Greene again, He Who Made a Way. Only because you made, and we're standing here only because you made, and we're standing here only because who you made a way. You move mountains. You cause walls to fall. You cause chains to break. You move mountains. You cause walls to fall. You move mountains. You cause walls to fall. You cause chains to fall. You cause walls to fall. You cause walls to fall. You cause to break. You cause chains 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 to break. You cause, yes, Lord, giants fall. Giants fall. Since you move. Yes, God moves mountains. Yes, everything is easy for you. Because God moves mountains. Yes, he moves mountains. He moves mountains. God moves the mountains. And it causes the mountains are moving. Hallelujah. It says, God moves the mountains. Jesus said, you speak to the mountains. What we need to do is to speak, and it is that of God to move the mountain. So I don't know what the difficulty is that you have today. I want to give you the assurance that Jesus Christ hasn't changed. He is the way maker. He makes the way. I know sometimes, it might seem like God is silent. But there are times when it's silent, or when it seems it's silent, just like he said to the children of Israel, he says, stand still and you will see the salvation of the Lord. Stand still and you will see the salvation of the Lord. And so I don't know, whatever it is that is causing you to be anxious today, stand still and you will see the salvation of the Lord. He will make a way. I know God has something that he has done in your life that you can share and tell somebody about. So I don't want you to keep the goodness of the Lord to yourself. Tell somebody about God's faithfulness. Tell somebody about God's goodness, because he surely makes a way. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. And I know that I believe this has blessed you. And I just want to encourage you that the God that we serve, he's true, he's faithful, he's right there even when you don't feel him. He's got you, he has a plan, he's never surprised, and he will never fail. Even when your faith fails, God remains faithful. Thank you for joining me. This is Dr. Tope Ade, and if you've been blessed by this, please subscribe to this channel. Thank you, and God bless you.